Christine, I remember she had a story event a long time ago, and then that was about the extent of it. Let's start with her Trustmaster reward, since it's pretty cute. Snowbear increases your unit's magic by 50 and their spirit by 30. It also adds a counter ability that can restore some of your unit's HP and limit burst gauge when they take damage. Her Super Trustmaster reward is a materia that increases your unit's magic by 50%, boosts their equipment magic if they're dual-wielding, and raises their ice resistance by 50%. Onto Christine's active abilities. Most of these are fairly outdated, though there are still some potentially useful effects. Frozen Armor, with a 1-turn 50% general mitigation and 100% ice resistance buff for an ally and Christine. Hand in Hand, which grants a weak ability that chains of absolute 0, and Frosty Touch, which imbues ice onto another ally. And then that's pretty much it, so let's look at her Neovision abilities. All of her ice attacks chain of absolute 0, which, well, isn't exactly the most popular family in the world. Permafrost is either going to inflict death or deal relatively weak damage. Sadly, the guaranteed status ailments are probably the best part about this ability. Impaling Icicles is a brave ability that partially ignores the enemy's spirit. Sudden Snowstorm is a cooldown attack that boosts her magic by 300%. Unrelenting Chill is a brave ability that can be used 3 times per battle. It can increase your team's ice damage by 15%, and her own ice damage by 20% for 3 turns. She's gained boosted stats of her new passives, though there aren't any noteworthy additions. But before we move on to her Brave Shift, I'd like to talk about her Quadruple Cast, which is accessible through her Limit Burst and a Latin ability that automatically enables it for a turn when she enters the battle. Multifrost lets you select any of her abilities, making her support effects far more accessible than they initially seem. And now to ride the Snowbear. Christine's Brave Shift is available right from the start. It doesn't have a turn duration, but it does have an 11-turn cooldown. Yeah, you really don't want to make a mistake here. On that happy note, onto her active abilities. Her attacks still deal ice damage and chain with absolute 0. Winter's Gift can restore an ally's MP and uses Christine's limit burst gauge to fill theirs. Violent Avalanche is a brave ability that gets stronger with each use, and fills her limit burst gauge by up to 1/4. Snow Battle is a cooldown ability that lets another ally quadruple cast an ice absolute 0 magic attack that fills their own limit burst gauge and gets stronger with each use. Unfortunately, this extraordinarily useful ability is slapped with a 10-turn cooldown, which is a huge pity. Ramo Blast is a cooldown ability that boosts her magic by 300%, deals ice damage that partially ignores the enemy's spirit, and fills her limit burst gauge by 1/4. Winter's Wrath is a brave ability that can be used once. It gives Christine a powerful magic beast killer, a generous MP regeneration buff, and then attacks the enemy. Let's look at her passives. Christine can either carry a single weapon or dual-wield. Dual-wielding will raise the chain modifier cap, though if she holds a single weapon, her passive equipment magic stat is greater to accommodate the higher ceiling, so it's a nice way to get some leeway with variation. She has an innate 30% evasion boost to deal with physical and magical attacks, and with her Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, she'll gain a small boost to her limit burst damage and an ever-important Quadruple Cast. Now let's look at the limit burst in question. Snowbear Overdrive inflicts a 130% Ice Imperil for 1 turn, boosts her limit burst damage, and deals ice damage that partially ignores the enemy's spirit. It's an incredibly powerful attack that can chain with certain other limit bursts, so there's a lot of potential here. Now, which brave ability should you prioritize? I'd recommend Violent Avalanche to boost its damage and bonus effects, Chilling with the Snowbear to boost its passives and MP regen, Winter's Wrath to increase its damage and MP regen, Unrelenting Chill to increase its ice damage boost, and Impaling Icicles to increase its damage. Let's make a damage rotation. First, let's introduce an optional turn 1, in which you hold off on her Brave Shift to cast some support buffs instead. This is only really recommended if you unlock the Snowbear's Blessings Latin ability, so you can quadruple cast things like Unrelenting Chill to boost ice damage, Frostbite to inflict an Ice Imperil over the next 3 turns, Frosty Touch to imbue ice onto someone, or just any other support abilities you can think of. It's best to activate any abilities you might want while you still can, as her Brave Shift's 11-turn cooldown is devastating to think about. But if you'd rather get out as much damage as you can, I'd recommend activating her Brave Shift, cast Ramo Blast, and triple cast Violent Avalanche. On turn 2, activate her Limit Burst. And now we're pretty much done with her rotation, as at this point you're just going to quadruple cast Violent Avalanche, get her Limit Burst up, and blast the enemy with Snowbear Overdrive. It's pretty simple, effective, and rather fun to use, though admittedly there's not much variation going on here. So how good is Christine? While her damage output is solid, it's nothing too extraordinary. Of course, if you think about it, she falls within expectations of a pre-existing Neovision Awakened unit released at this point anyways, so it's not too much of a surprise. Unfortunately though, while Christine herself is a solid unit, she suffers from several points from her kit. First off, most of Christine's strongest attacks are on her Brave Shift, which has a 11-turn cooldown. As a result, most players would likely prefer to avoid deactivating it, unless you have a ridiculous over-the-top strategy that involves spending 11 turns in her regular form. However, her damage output revolves around absolute zero chains and her limit burst, which creates a rather limited playstyle with very few viable participants. Luckily, Christine is able to grant absolute zero chains onto other units, but by this point you may as well just use someone else with easier chaining partners. Still, Christine's a strong unit, and if you build her magic and limit burst damage output, you can have a lot of fun by pairing her with a second friend.